Hello, YouTube family. Thanks for those of you who are watching this video. This is my final plea to people who are undecided, people who were thinking they won't vote. And I get it. Voting sucks in America nowadays. We've got two political parties that have created a bi-monopoly where it's going to be either the Republican or the Democrat who's going to win election after election. I'm not a big fan of political parties. I'm not a big fan of the system we have. On the ballot here in Nevada is ranked choice voting. I hope it passes. You have a lot of propaganda from both political parties, Republican and Democrat, trying to avoid ranked choice voting getting on the ballot because that would allow for people to vote third party, independent. Realistically, I wish we had national ranked choice voting. There's a number of states that have abortion measures on the ballot. So far, abortion measures have carried the day. In blue states and red states, any state it shows up on the ballot, it wins. And Republicans have been trying to deal with the debacle of them using the court to do away with the right to abortion. And it's not just the right to abortion, it's the right to needed medical care. Because of the way when Roe versus Wade was overturned, it went to the states, and you have all these red states that have just straight up abortion bans, whether it's a straight up ban, whether it's a 6 week ban, and they claim there are exemptions in some of these states for life of the mother, rape, incest, that sort of thing. But the reality is that's not true. Because for states that have a 6 week ban, most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And it's not written into law as far as life of the mother. And so we have women now dying, being reported month after month, women dying in red states because something went wrong with the pregnancy. And these weren't women who were looking for an abortion. They were women hoping to have a baby. They were families hoping to start a family or to build on the family they have. Some of the women who are dying already have children, were pregnant again. Their pregnancy went sideways. And because of the way the law is written, doctors can't take the risk of providing the medical abortion late in a pregnancy because the state's threatening them with imprisonment, fines, losing their medical license, destroying their life, their career, and they're taking away their freedom. Same thing for women, threatening incarceration for women that have an abortion later in pregnancy. And the thing is, they're not having an abortion. What they have is a pregnancy that went sideways, and they've got medical complications, but it's a medical abortion procedure they need to fix the problem they have. And so what you end up with is doctors having women sitting outside of hospitals or sitting outside of ERs waiting till they're bleeding bad enough that the doctor can say, I had to do this to save this woman's life. And some of the women are just bleeding out. Some of them aren't being saved. And that's why I oppose restrictions on abortion. Because if you're going to put restrictions on abortion, you need to have it specifically in the law, written in the law, that women and their doctors can unilaterally determine that a medical abortion procedure is needed due to complications with the pregnancy. It has to be written in there. But the thing is, Republicans aren't writing that in there because it has nothing to do with caring about women, caring about children, caring about unborn babies. It has to do with control. So this election cycle, abortion is again going to be on the ballot because women have been pissed. Their ire has been pointed at the Republican Party, and in the early voting numbers we have so far, women are showing up more than men. In key voting states, you've had about 1.8 million women, more women than men show up to vote. Women are still pissed. and they're still showing up, and they're using their vote to show how pissed they are. If Kamala Harris wins, she'll need to do something to protect women's right to abortion. That's what they're expecting from Democrats. This can't be a do-nothing, needle around the edges Democratic presidency if Kamala Harris wins. And you have some states, Republicans have showed up and voted early more. Some states, Democrats. Overall, nationally, Democrats are showing up and doing more early voting than Republicans. Although Republicans have shown up a lot more than in the past. Because of the way Donald Trump claimed early voting was fraud and mail voting was fraud, it leaned heavily Democrat till this election cycle. Republicans figured out that we need to tell people to vote however they're going to vote. Mail your ballot in, go or vote early, go vote on election day, however you're going to do it, go and vote. And Republicans this cycle have closed the gap, the early voting gap that Democrats had. But there's still a pronounced male-female gap with females voting more than males early in the election cycles. Here is the final tally for the polling. Nationally, Harris leads by 1.2%. As far as the key battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Trump leads by small margins within the margin of error. Harris leads Michigan and Wisconsin by small margins within the margin of error. The last thing I pulled on Pennsylvania, which was polling that reflects up to this week, Pennsylvania is dead tied between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. There is outlier data. You have North Carolina a lot closer than people expected it to be because of a atrocious Republican running for governor there in North Carolina, and that's causing a lack of support for Republicans overall and a lack of popularity in Republicans because they have such an unpopular candidate running for governor in North Carolina. And so North Carolina's polling has been remaining within the margin of error. Over the weekend, we had a poll from Iowa, a very reputable pollster in Iowa, taking a poll of its own state that showed Kamala Harris up 3 percentage points in Iowa. Iowa, deeply red Iowa, a state Trump should win by double digits. The last poll out of Iowa showed Kamala Harris up 3 percentage points. And perhaps that's an outlier, and it's not going to show up on election day tomorrow. Perhaps it's not an outlier, and Kamala Harris actually has a chance to win Iowa. But given that, this is the 538 website's final tally of showing the results. Again, 1.2 percentage points for Kamala Harris, both in 270 to win and in the 538 polling. She has a slight lead, 1.2 percentage points, as you can see with the lines. Kamala Harris is the top blue line, Donald Trump's the bottom red line. There were points in the last few months where Kamala Harris pulled away from Trump, got a larger lead. Then as we got closer to election day, as normally is the case, it got tighter. And if we look at election maps, because the battleground states are so close, if the election results reflect the polling, Trump wins the states he's ahead in, Kamala Harris wins the states she's ahead in, but she wins Pennsylvania, then Kamala Harris would win with exactly 270 electoral votes. And this map reflects if the final results, state by state, end up the way the polling is today. If Trump wins the states he's ahead in out of the battlegrounds, and Kamala Harris wins the states she's ahead in, plus Pennsylvania, which was tied, as I said, if it falls to Harris and she holds on to the other states she's ahead in, she will squeak out a very close election win. If, however, Donald Trump were to win Pennsylvania and hold the rest of the states that he holds currently, Donald Trump would end up being the winner with 287 electoral votes. So with as close as it is, if Trump holds on to the states he's ahead in, and again, they're all within the margin of error, the ones Kamala Harris was ahead in is within the margin of error. But if the results fall as Trump wins the states he's ahead in and Kamala Harris wins the states she's ahead in, but Trump gets Pennsylvania, which is currently tied, then Trump would win. If she gets Pennsylvania, she wins. If Trump gets Pennsylvania, he wins. And so it is, polling-wise, extremely close. However, like I said, you have some outlier stuff. North Carolina is closer than people expected it to be because of the atrocious Republican gubernatorial candidate. And Iowa just came out with a poll showing Kamala Harris ahead in Iowa. If among the battleground states, Trump wins the states he's ahead in now, Kamala Harris wins the states she's ahead in now, but Pennsylvania falls to Trump, however, Kamala Harris manages to pull off a win in North Carolina and Iowa, she would end up being the election winner with 273 electoral votes. So it is possible for Trump to win Pennsylvania and Kamala Harris to still manage to win if she were to pull off a win in Iowa and North Carolina. Obviously, if Kamala Harris were to pull off winning all the battleground states, she's going to win the election, regardless of what happens in North Carolina and Iowa. But that's the polling data. As far as Donald Trump, one of the two candidates, and if you're a hardcore right-winger or whatever, and you are upset that I constantly am presenting Donald Trump as a clown, it's because I think he's a fucking clown. I think Donald Trump's a joke. But let's talk about Trump, the candidate. Donald Trump is ignorant. I'm thinking one of the most ignorant people who's ever entered politics. Donald Trump was born into the lap of luxury, into extreme wealth. He had every benefit, every privilege, private schooling, the whole 9 yards. He didn't have to worry about any needs being met. His family was rich. He had a solid baseline. All his needs were met because of how much of a baby, a privileged, spoiled baby he is. I don't know that he's ever heard the word no before he got into office in 2017. I'm wondering if people telling him no when he was president broke his brain or something, because he had never been told no before. He behaves like a total spoiled brat. He talks like a total spoiled brat. I mean, Donald Trump, born into absurd wealth, having his life handed to him, being someone who never had to accomplish anything, he never had to achieve anything, he never had to be smart or competent. Donald Trump got out of college, started working at his dad's company, the Trump Organization. When Donald Trump's dad got old and left, passed away, Donald Trump took over the Trump Organization. And what did he do? He claimed he created a phenomenal, successful business. He didn't. He got out of college and went to work for his dad. He didn't have to submit a resume. He didn't have to perform in an interview against other candidates. He's the son of the guy that owned the corporation. He just went to work for his dad. Donald Trump has told his lies about starting his business with $1 million loan from his dad. Donald Trump's dad dumped tons of money, millions upon millions of dollars, onto Donald Trump throughout the early phases of his business career because Donald Trump sucks at business. In the early business endeavors, building endeavors, it's been well reported through the years. Donald Trump was the front man being pushed by his dad as the person behind the project. But all the work, all the coordination, the person with all the connections was Donald Trump's dad. His dad was essentially building projects and putting Donald Trump's face on them. And when Donald Trump had to start doing that stuff himself, he failed miserably. Donald Trump paid a writer to write a book to make him sound like he's a good businessman. Donald Trump has always been a failure. He's lazy, he's ignorant. He spent most of his time in office either playing golf or watching cable news to see if people were talking about him. Donald Trump has a massive ego. I mean, like I've said before, anybody who runs for political office has got an ego. Anyone who believes they should be the leader of the free world, they're the person to fix our massive problems, has an ego. Donald Trump takes the cake. Anyone who believes they should be the leader of the free world has a certain amount of narcissism to them. But Donald Trump is another level of narcissist. Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 despite losing the popular vote. He's never won the popular vote. After Donald Trump became president, as I said, he spent most of his time either playing golf or watching cable news to see if people were talking about him. Donald Trump's the first president in history to have a net loss of jobs while he was in office. And yes, it was due to COVID, but specifically it was due to his poor handling of COVID. Donald Trump was short on legislative accomplishments. He passed a tax cut bill that went to primarily to the wealthiest people in the country and to corporations. Over 80% went to the wealthiest people in the country and corporations. Donald Trump has already told billionaires he will give them another tax cut. Donald Trump otherized minorities in this country to pit us against one another. Donald Trump created more division than there already was to pit us against one another for his own political success. Donald Trump has been villainizing immigrants, legal immigrants, illegal immigrants, people who are a minority, people who have no power, people who don't have wealth behind them. And it's caused a lot of problems for those people who are already powerless, who don't have the ability to fight back. Donald Trump has been a bully his whole life. He continues to be a bully. Donald Trump, what he wants is to be a dictator. He has said that over and over again as he is fawned over dictator after dictator around the world. Recently, one of the former staffers for Trump, a former U.S. military general, said that Donald Trump absolutely was a fascist and admired the kind of power they had to be the person who makes all the decisions, to not have to deal with Congress, to not have to deal with the parameters of law. Donald Trump himself had said that he should be able to suspend the Constitution if he wants to. Donald Trump's next term, if he was to get one, would include a great deal. He claims he doesn't know anything about Project 2025, but Donald Trump is a narcissist and a liar. And I realize also that politicians lie a lot. Donald Trump beats them all by leaps and bounds. Donald Trump is a liar. He's been that way, I'm assuming, his whole life. I mean, he lied about how much his businesses were worth, depending on whether he was looking to get a loan or having to pay taxes. He lied about heights of buildings. He lies about everything. Donald Trump refuses to take any accountability. Recently, there was the Madison Square Garden rally where he had Tony Hinchcliffe, the comedian, made his racist jokes, his bigoted jokes, and that was the guy that criticized Puerto Rico, calling it a floating island of garbage. And the Republicans took a major hit with that. One, Puerto Ricans, as I said in the last video, are Americans. Puerto Ricans serve this country. They serve this country at home. They serve this country in the military. They pay taxes. Puerto Ricans would have a lot more benefits if we would give them the statehood they've sought after. It would be better for Puerto Rico. Donald Trump, when he was in office in Puerto Rico, suffered a hurricane that caused massive amounts of damage and pain and suffering in that island. Donald Trump questioned whether he should help them out because they didn't support him in the election. That's the kind of person Donald Trump was. When COVID hit, Donald Trump didn't know what to do. So he played the denial game. He said it's not a big deal. There's 15 cases now. Pretty soon it'll be down to 5, then none. He said the weather's going to get warm in the spring and the summer, and it'll just magically go away. Donald Trump downplayed the virus and caused the COVID pandemic to be way worse in America than it was in countries around the world. Third world countries were able to deal with the virus better than we were because we had a president who didn't want to have to deal with it. When faced with a real catastrophe, Donald Trump failed the test. If he would have just handled COVID well, he probably would have been reelected. But he couldn't do that. I don't know why somebody would want to put Donald Trump back into office when he's already shown that if a catastrophe faces this country, he will fail the test. This man who admires dictators, who has a policy playbook from the Heritage Foundation to basically turn this country into a right-wing, fascist, authoritarian country. And as Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris, said, when someone draws up a game plan, they're going to use the game plan. Believe it. Donald Trump can lie and claim he doesn't know anything about it all he wants, but facts are facts. If you create a game plan, you're going to use the game plan. So Donald Trump, a child of privilege, inherited over $400 million from his dad, blew it. Was paid over $400 million for his work with the Apprentice TV show over 20 years, blew it. Donald Trump has been handed life on a silver platter, and he couldn't handle it because he's so insanely ignorant. Donald Trump constantly needed his businesses to be bailed out by his dad. He had Carl Icahn, somebody who bailed him out on his Atlantic City casino businesses. I mean, casinos. Donald Trump couldn't run a successful casino. Businesses that are made to make money. The house always wins. And Donald Trump could figure out how to make it work. And people are wanting to put this guy back into office. Like I said, the polls are razor thin. If the polling is accurate, and another caveat to that is you have Republican entities who started very skewed polls heavily favoring the Republican to screw up the polling. That was done for a reason. Donald Trump's already set up the groundwork to claim there was fraud in this election, that this election was stolen if he loses. You have Republican entities that set up polls that skew results that show Donald Trump leading by a wide margin. The reason for that is for his supporters to see that and think Donald Trump's way ahead, and so that then if he loses, they're going to cry foul. The groundwork's laid for Donald Trump to do the same crap he did in 2020. If he loses, he's going to claim there was fraud. And that's the worst thing that could happen, is Kamala Harris wins by a razor-thin margin, and Donald Trump cries foul. He's already got the processes set up, the people set up to challenge the results of the election. So, even with mail-in voting, absentee voting, it could take days, it could take a couple of weeks to really know the actual results. Hopefully, within a day or two of tomorrow, we will know who won the election. And it's a matter of the rest of the stuff coming in is a matter of how much did they win by. The best scenario would be Kamala Harris wins by a landslide. And that way it's harder for someone to claim foul. Because, and it's a real worry, there are people worried that Donald Trump's supporters will go nuts, will become super violent if Kamala Harris wins and it's a close election and Donald Trump can claim foul. Plus, he's got courts on his side. Donald Trump packed courts while he was in office with the help of Mitch McConnell, including the Supreme Court. Donald Trump will try and get challenges to this election if he loses to the Supreme Court in hopes that they will install him as president. Donald Trump's immigration plan, the mass deportations. In the video I made yesterday, at the end of it, I went into detail about my issues with that. Please give that video a look. You can skew down to the end to watch my tirade on the mass deportation stuff. But mass deportations, I think, are logistically impossible or nearly impossible. As I said, I could not walk around Las Vegas where I live and point out people who are in this country unlawfully. I couldn't do it. So I don't believe you could do it, because you don't possess mental powers that you don't possess mental powers that I don't have. You're not going to just walk around and point out people who are illegal. You're going to have to violate people's rights, and you're going to have people. Donald Trump has claimed he'll use the military, National Guard, police agencies, and people looking at it are like, you don't have enough police. I don't know that anybody wants the National Guard roaming through towns, ransacking people's homes, challenging whether they're here illegally or illegally or not. And as I said before, I think the only way Trump would be able to pull that off would be to deputize these crazy right-wing reactionary pseudo-militias, people like the Proud Boys, and have them acting like brown shirts going around as thugs, hired thugs, and just rounding up people who aren't necessarily in the country unlawfully, but in a racist way. They're going to be looking at people who look Hispanic, people who look black. They're going to be rounding up random people, some of whom, perhaps a large amount of whom, are going to be people who are U.S. citizens, people who are immigrants here illegally, and it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be vile. It's going to be violent. And again, you're not just going to put these people on buses and ship them across the border. You know, you're going to have a way to hold people. So you're going to have concentration camps where people will be rounded up, cast into, and then sent to another country, perhaps not even a country they're from, if they're an immigrant, or a country they've ever been to. If they're a U.S. citizen, they're just going to have their rights completely thrown in the trash while they get deported to a country they perhaps never even visited. The cost of this maneuver would be astronomical. People are estimating it would cost in the trillions of dollars to conduct mass deportations of tens of millions of people, as Donald Trump claims he's going to do. His tariffs would raise prices astronomically. We would have to deal with high inflation, and most likely, if he was to enact tariffs the way he wants to, it would cause a recession. Donald Trump is not the person we need right now. And hopefully, personally, I don't want to see him anywhere near the levers of power. Donald Trump, what few plans he has, they're horrendous. They're going to hurt this country. They're going to hurt the people of this country. They're going to hurt our economy. And his plans literally could be the end of this country. Now, as far as Kamala Harris, as I said before, she's not going to be the savior of anything. She's not going to magically make everything better. And she's not going to fix all of the massive problems we have in this country. But what Kamala Harris is someone from an average middle-class family who is smart, who is accomplished. She went to college, got a law degree. She was a prosecutor. She was a district attorney. She was the attorney general for the state of California. She was a senator. She's our current sitting vice president. Kamala Harris is someone who has accomplished a lot in her life. She's someone who has worked hard. She's someone who has been on the right side of some issues. She's been on the wrong side of other issues. Kamala Harris has things she's got to contend with, such as the record of Joe Biden. Overall, Joe Biden's record is rather good. He passed a great deal of legislation, more than I thought he would. He passed some really good legislation. He passed some legislation to deal with climate change. We needed more. Joe Biden wasn't willing to put pressure on people like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin to force better, more robust legislation through. And as I said in the last video, Joe Biden not only oversaw, but funded, aided, and abetted a genocide in Gaza. That, I think, when history looks back on this time period, that will be the legacy of Joe Biden. He's the president who aided and abetted a genocide. Kamala Harris has not distanced herself enough from what Joe Biden is allowed to happen in Gaza. That's the biggest failure she's been able to do in this campaign. She's the biggest failure, self-inflicted wound. She did not come out and say definitively that she will take a different perspective on the Israeli right-wing government, on Benjamin Netanyahu, and what they're doing to the Palestinian people. If she would have done that, she would be leading, I think, by a lot more. That's the one thing where, if she would have done that, that would have catapulted her to a point where I think we will be able to be comfortable that she's going to win at this point. She didn't do that. Kamala Harris has some good political instincts. She has some bad political instincts. And the thing is, she's a corporate Democrat. She's got political consultants around her telling her what kind of clothes to wear, telling her what kind of positions to take. When she started campaigning hardcore as the nominee, she had a reduced time frame to campaign. That's a self-inflicted Democrat Party wound. They should have had a primary. You had people, voters, people around the country. You had prominent people, people in media, people in politics that were saying Joe Biden couldn't win an election because not just that he was so old, but he had so much mental decline with his age that people did not have faith that he could pull off another 4 years. And when he tried to run for re-election, when reality set in, he dropped out. That was a good move. I don't think it's going to clean up his legacy for the future because of Gaza. But he made a difficult decision, a good decision to pull out, to drop out of the election. And Kamala Harris had a very truncated amount of time to try and put together a campaign, put together policies, go out and start campaigning. That's why she was late to the game doing interviews. That's why she was late to the game holding rallies. She was late to this stuff because she got thrust into this position. When Joe Biden was going to drop out, she knew she had to take action, and she did, which is a good thing. She contacted the delegates Biden had, gave them her pitch, got them supporting her to where she was the presumptive nominee within 24 to 48 hours of Joe Biden dropping out. She had secured that position, so there wasn't this big question hanging over the Democrats for this election. But she had a much shorter time to operate within as a presidential candidate. She's also a female. She's also a person of color. And glass ceilings, no matter what you think of them, are hard to break. Glass ceilings are super hard to break. And she's trying to break a very hard, very thick glass ceiling to become the first female president of the United States. And if she was to lose this election to Donald Trump, that would be 2 times Donald Trump, this loser buffoon, won an election, and both times it was against a female. It would say so much bad about America if we haven't evolved to the point where we can elect a female, a competent, intelligent female, over an old buffoon who was born into a life of privilege. If we're going to select that buffoon twice over intelligent, capable women. I mean, Hillary Clinton was a flawed candidate, but she wasn't dumb. She was an accomplished woman. Kamala Harris is not dumb. She's an accomplished woman. She's intelligent, well-spoken, and has plenty of accomplishments in her life. There's plenty you can criticize her on. There's plenty you would have to praise her on for what she's accomplished. And people are trying, the Republicans are trying to make this about immigration, saying she failed on the border. You have people constantly saying she should have fixed all these things she's campaigning on, all the problems she's campaigning on. She should have fixed them over the last 3 years. She's the vice president. She's not making policy. The president's making policy. And she's supporting the president. That's her job as vice president. If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were to win tomorrow, technically tomorrow, but when the results get tallied, J.D. Vance isn't making policy. Trump is. And J.D. Vance's role is to support Trump as the vice president. So it's absurd, these arguments people are trying to make, that she could fix anything as the vice president. Her job as vice president is to be the president of the Senate and to cast tie-breaking votes on legislation. And she's done that. Kamala Harris has plans. In some cases, it's guidance she has that she wants to go in a certain direction. In some cases, it's logistical legislation she's already thought up. Same thing for Trump. Trump stuff is plans. Most of it's not fleshed out at all. And Donald Trump, I think, would be a disaster. Like I said, he failed when faced with a catastrophe. Kamala Harris, when she was a part of a re-election campaign with Joe Biden being the president trying to run for re-election, and everybody saw how bad off he was mentally. And when it came to the point he decided to drop out, Kamala Harris didn't panic. She didn't go into denial, any of that. She took action. She took affirmative action to make sure there was a presumptive nominee for the party. Like it or not. I mean, she didn't wilt under the pressure. Donald Trump wilted under the pressure of the pandemic. When it came to the crisis within the Democrat Party, when Joe Biden couldn't continue, she didn't wilt. She took charge. And that speaks wonders for her. So, in this election, I'm looking at it as a choice between competence, Kamala Harris, between intelligent, Kamala Harris, between competent Kamala Harris and the lazy, born into the lap of luxury buffoon that Donald Trump is. And I have no problems calling him a buffoon. Donald Trump's the guy that suggested maybe we can inject bleach into our veins to kill a virus. Donald Trump's the person that said sunlight kills viruses. Perhaps we can somehow get the sunlight into the body. He's a buffoon. Donald Trump's the guy who looked without protective eyewear up at the sun to try and see an eclipse. Donald Trump is a buffoon. He's a moron. And for whatever reason, some people in this country, a large percentage of the Republican base currently, for whatever reason, have taken on being a diehard fan and supporter of Donald Trump as part of their identity. People identify as this mega fan and supporter of Donald Trump for whatever reason, good or bad. I think it's horrible. Unfortunately, it's tearing families apart. It's put constant strain on families because so many people see the buffoonery of Trump and other people worship the man. And we have a choice tomorrow. If you are undecided, I hope you watch this video and it helps you choose to vote, go out and vote for Kamala Harris. If you are leaning not voting, I hope it motivates you to go out and vote if you watch it. I don't know if this video will get 2 views or 200 views, but hopefully people will watch this video. People will pass this video on. Please go out and vote. There could be 2 new Supreme Court justices picked in the next presidential cycle, whoever gets elected tomorrow. And we already have a Supreme Court that's working on withering down our rights. Right now they're attacking women. They're also most likely going to attack the LGBTQ community. They're constantly attacking marginalized communities. And we can't have another 4 years of Trump. If Trump got another 4 years, I don't know if he would ever leave. He tried to not leave in 2020 when he lost the election. So you can't count on anything with this guy. Please get out and vote. Tomorrow's election day. Please get out and vote either for Kamala Harris or to keep Trump out of office. Either way, tomorrow is election day. Please get out and vote. I would hope that you would vote for Kamala Harris or vote to make sure Trump does not get access to that kind of power again. However you're going to vote, whichever one you would vote for, you can vote for Kamala Harris. You can vote to keep Trump away from political office. If you're undecided, please lean towards Kamala Harris and help us avoid whatever catastrophe Donald Trump would bring upon us as in another election term. If you're leaning on not voting at all, please get out and vote. Don't vote. This is not an election to vote for third party. Most of my life, I've voted third party or independent because overall, I don't like either one of these two parties. But this is not an election to do that. I am in a swing state. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I must vote. And I know I must vote for Kamala Harris. It tears me up what's been done in Gaza, what's been done to the Palestinian people. And I get it. The people who say I can't vote for her because she was the vice president under the guy who supported that genocide. But I look at these two candidates. Jill Stein's not going to win. It's going to be Trump or Harris. And Trump would be so much worse for the Palestinian people. He would be so much worse for the Muslim American community. He would be so bad for the migrant community in this country, for the immigrants in this country. He would be horrible for women, for women's rights, for young girls. He would be absolutely a nightmare for the LGBTQ community. I am the parent of a trans child. So it's a big deal to me to make sure he doesn't get into office. Me, someone who typically through my life have voted third party or independent, I can't do this time. I'm in a swing state, and we have a choice. It's going to be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump that wins the presidency, and so I've got to vote for her. So please, either vote for her. If you were planning on staying home, get out and vote. Vote for her, vote against him, however you're going to do it. Let's make sure Donald Trump does not get into office. Thanks for watching.